welcome everyone to another episode of Enough to Keep Going. This is episode number 167, and I still, every time, goes up by one, but each time it still amazes me that we've reached, we've come this far. For
Well, this
the,
doesn't even count all the reboots that we had along the way.
I
So
know this is true. I'm the new guy still on the block. Um, for the fifth Thursday of the month of 2020. And that actually did throw me for a loop today because I was assuming things are going to happen today that did not. But I am Swiss Guard and I am joined by my good friend DBQ Hams. How are you doing, DB?
I'm doing okay. I'm appreciating that you said of the month of 2020 without
Oh,
naming October.
yeah.
So,
Well,
that is exactly how the month of 2020 goes, is that it all just blurs together.
this is
So it
true.
works out fine.
It was um, it was my subconscious bursting through. Um, I got a flu shot today and my arm is sore. So I'm going to blame any future gaffes on that distraction because I'm hurting here. I'm struggling,
That seems pretty reasonable.
but I'm gonna
So
power through. All right. So October 2020. It's the 29th, 2 days away from Halloween. Um, First day of the Steam Halloween sale. So I have not um, I've not dove into that yet, but I intend to the next day or two. But this week we have a deep dive, so we're going to be talking news. And oddly enough, like sometimes I feel like we have to wade through dozens of stories and pull out like we develop a theme and we pull out stories that apply to the theme. And this fortnight, the last 2 weeks that led up to this deep dive, we didn't actually have that many. I don't know if it's because we just were not as meticulous the last few couple of weeks with collecting stories, or if it's like a calm before the storm type of scenario where we already got all the news about the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5, and we're just kind of waiting now for the launch days to arrive.
I think calm before the storm kind of makes sense. Like other than announcements and releases, I mean, this is usually the time in the fall when we are a little light on news because everything is releasing. That if there wasn't a console launch, a lot of this is just trying to get games out the door for the holiday season.
So that's kind of a preview on how we'll close the show. Is talking game releases and updates and whatnot, and some delays, unfortunately. But we're going to start with the future of gaming, which is cloud gaming. And while it has been a little bit quiet on the immediate, like, new console front, it hasn't been there's been some stories about different companies trying to get into the cloud gaming sphere. So um, both like as like a player and just some companies aren't hosting it themselves, but they still have a presence, and Ubisoft would be one of the latter. We have a pair of stories from them. The first is that this is from The Verge. Uplay Plus subscription service rebrands as Ubisoft Plus, expands to Stadia and Luna. And if you remember back, I don't know if it was one or two deep dives ago, Luna is the Amazon entry into the cloud gaming space. But Ubisoft is overhauling its Uplay Plus subscription service with a new name, Ubisoft Plus, and launching integrations with both Google Stadia and Amazon's new Luna service, all included in the same $14.99 per month cost starting on November 10th. The PC side of Uplay Plus will stay largely the same as it's been since Ubisoft launched the service last year. Subscribers will still get access to over 100 Ubisoft titles, including soon-to-be released games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Watch Dogs Legion, and Immortals Phoenix. I don't know. The Immortal series is
Phoenix
Phoenix
Rising.
Rising.
Phoenix Rising. Yep.
Why'd they spell it
This
like
is the
that?
God and Monsters aspect of it,
They
right?
spelled it
Yes.
all Web 2.0. So,
Phoenix is the name of the character rather than
okay,
the mythical bird.
all right,
And
but
I say this because I've played some on
uh,
Stadia yesterday. So yeah,
okay.
the Ubisoft's announcements here tie right in with that.
The other story before I kind of we jump into the analysis of that, the other story is Ubisoft Connect, and we got this from SeasonGaming.com, and it's basically their announcement that Ubisoft Connect will be the seems that with the alignment of the next major releases, they're consolidating their Uplay and Ubisoft Club applications into one titled Ubisoft Connect. So their uh, press release basically for all you PC players out there, don't worry, our PC desktop app isn't going anywhere, just evolving. Uplay has come a long way, and Ubisoft Connect is the latest step in providing the best experience for our community. So I think Ubisoft Connect is kind of the social media, uh, like rewards type um, arm, I guess you could say, of their online app presence, which kind of brings us into the next into the analysis, which is it feels like this stuff's always changing. We had EA rebrand itself. They had multiple layers of whatever services and tools
Yep,
and
EA Play and EA Origin all kind of merged into, EA Access and EA Origin all merged into
to
EA
EA
Play.
Play, and now we
Yep.
have Ubisoft Uplay and Uplay, or I guess Ubisoft Club
And
now
what would have
becoming
been Ubisoft's Club, which was like their point system that you would get and unlock stuff in games.
okay, and now that's becoming Ubisoft Plus is the service, but now the club is becoming Ubisoft Connect, as far as I can
Connect. Yep.
tell.
Yeah, and Ubisoft Plus was something that was, or Uplay Plus was what was announced, what, 2 years ago now at E3? This was their subscription model, kind of along the same lines as EA's,
Mhm.
which has not necessarily taken off and is to the point where now that it's merged with Game Pass coming up here in November. So Ubisoft Plus is $15 a month. It does give you the kind of
The
deluxe packages
right
of
the
things.
the big games you get access to.
Yeah, and their back catalog on PC, you get their back catalog. It sounds like right now what they're promising is their big new releases in terms of the three that you mentioned with Watch Dogs, Assassin's Creed, and Phoenix Rising on the streaming platforms. But the other piece of here, as I was reading through this, is that right now there's not an additional charge for having them on the streaming platforms. There was some question of if there was going to be an additional cost to have it on Stadia when it released or when it announced that it was going to have. I mean, it announced that it was going to have Stadia support back in the summer of 18 when it announced that they were going to, Ubisoft Plus or Uplay Plus was coming and it was going to integrate with Stadia, and it really hasn't up until this point. So it's coming now in December, is what it sounds like. But they only promise that during the beta there won't be an additional cost, and so it'll be interesting to see if there is once it's out of beta or how long actual beta counts for. But the other piece that makes this potentially interesting is that now that Stadia has a free tier, I guess is the right word, right? Like you don't have to be a Stadia Pro member. Like if you were just a Stadia member, could you be an Ubisoft Plus subscriber and still have access to those games? And so that I think will be an interesting question. It sounds like I'm guessing that it's going to, based on Amazon's announcement about Luna and their channels last month in September, it makes sense that it is going to be the standard $15. But what we don't know is that if you already are a subscriber on Amazon, do you automatically get the channel, right? Like, if you're a Showtime subscriber, do you already get the channel on Amazon Prime, or do you have to pay to have the Amazon Prime channel for Showtime? So yeah, lots of, as you said, confusion is the
Well,
word of the night. So yes,
it's
lots of
just
unknowns.
everything is shifting. Everything shifts. Like everything's being rebranded and rebooted and moved around and merged with that and announced for this, and it's just it like I mean we follow it, uh the news, but it's still unless like I'm like diving into it and using the tools like on a daily basis, it's easy
I
to
wonder
tune
though
out.
too, like if part of the boardroom branding of this shifting is that it ties in with the new console launch. Like this is people are going to be interested in the new, and so to say that this is the new version of this at the same time that consoles are coming, is there a decision among shareholders somewhere, right, that this is the way to keep these services relevant rather than have them as the long running background noise.
Well, to kind of jump off of that, less so with Ubisoft Connect because like whatever, but Ubisoft Plus, that completely makes sense as far as like okay, we're turning the page. We got Luna, we got Stadia, we got the new consoles. Like, um, it did it announce? I don't think it's announced that it's going to be on the consoles yet, but we can
No, not yet.
anticipate
No.
that that could be coming down later.
Yeah, it was never in their. I mean, it was never in their plans that they announced, but it doesn't mean that that certainly wouldn't be possible.
But if we're looking at it as a channel, it makes much more sense to have it Ubisoft Plus than Uplay whatever.
Exactly. Yep.
So I mean, it makes sense
Same thing
there.
with
It's
like
just,
EA Play versus Origin.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like there's more clarity now, but I still hate the different levels of what exactly is the subscription that I'm paying for and everything like that. So, the other note that's interesting is it will be cross progression. So if you're subscribed to Ubisoft Plus and you play Assassin's Creed Valhalla on your PC, and then you're at your family's house, and you know keep going on your smartphone through Stadia or whatever, you just pick up where you left off, which is a nice feature and one that I would hope that you'd have in a cloud gaming space. So, um, all right, so yeah, I mean it makes sense. It's always just like every time I see stories like this, I'm like, ah, here we go again. Like space is shut
Well,
down.
speaking of here we go again,
Yes,
I think that's a nice segue into the next story.
you want to take it?
Sure, I'll take it.
This
Right,
is
the
by the
next
way,
story
and
is
I did that on purpose because before the show, this was the one story that DB said, "You can throw me any story, except I
just don't
haven't
throw me this
this
one.
one."
Yeah, I did say that, yes, but so this is the Facebook cloud gaming story. And so there is a limited beta that's rolling out already in parts of the US for Facebook's cloud gaming. This article that we're looking at comes from PC Gamer, but it was covered in a variety of places. I think that this is, as we were just talking about Ubisoft and cloud gaming and AAA or at least big budget games, the Facebook cloud gaming is moving in the other direction, and the everything is new, everything old is new again. Makes sense here because, ooh, what, a decade ago we were hot in the mix of Facebook gaming, and just earlier this year we had the announcement that Farmville was finally shutting down on Facebook. So we had lots of match threes and puzzle games on Facebook and card games. But then you also had things like Madden got into the mix, and Civilization got into the mix at one point in time. And there was a Dragon Age Facebook game that I sunk a lot of time into. And so, not that all those dated 2010 games are coming back, but that in the Facebook gaming sphere, in their what they are looking at is free to play games. That they are going to be launching in the beta. The focus here is going to be on free to play. It's going to have in-app purchases already lined up, so at least that's what they're starting with, right? That they say that they're going to be focusing on mobile games with a limited selection of genres that they anticipate being able to stream further. But a lot of what they're announcing at this point are things that are already running on mobile devices. They announced like the Asphalt series and PGA Tour Golf Shootout and some uh, WWE Supercard and other types of kind of traditional mobile games. So what that looks like on, it'll be really interesting to see what this looks like. Is if you're running this within your Facebook, you know, if you're running this within Facebook, do they eventually have other hooks with it? Right, that part of what Facebook Gaming provided people in Farmville, or what was the other one, Mafia, or there was someone where people were, you'd always get push notifications from your friend about, uh, you know, liking something back in order to provide them additional resources. And so, if Facebook goes in this same aspect of providing, what is their interconnection between the Facebook friends list and your Facebook contacts and these games, right? Like, so that will be an interesting hook. And as Facebook and Oculus have blurred and joined more than ever, um, again, where Facebook is looking to find additional. It, this is any big company that is doing the streaming service, right? That they are, the benefit of this is information. That there is, what are the other pieces that they're getting, the account that you're tied to, the other, depending on what you play, does that mean that you're going to see different content on your Facebook page? There's lots of questions in terms of how we don't really have a cost to this yet. Again, this is just in beta, and whether there will be a cost or if this will just be ad supported and other types of things. So,
I think,
but this was kind of the out of the blue
yeah,
cloud gaming aspect. The other ones we knew about. The other ones kind of make sense because they're getting into kind of the bigger, um, trying to take on the traditional gaming space. Where this feels very much like it is taking on the browser game space.
yeah, that was my reaction as well. Um, it was a very, I don't want to say tepid, but reserved type of announcement. Like, I mean, I think uh, Jason Rubin literally said, cloud gaming announcements are prone to hype. So they didn't want to come out like super strong. And then, with the particulars and the type of games that they're going for, I thought it was also interesting that the games for this service are very, as you described them, browsery, mobile seeming, like that kind of free to play level, and yet they have premier gaming hardware in Oculus. And it's kind of, what's their like overarching strategy for gaming moving forward, and I think it's like you said, which is it's beyond gaming, and it's about the the Facebook hive mind, so to speak. um,
Well, and I think that in some ways they have both ends of the spectrum. There is that they have the hobbyist, the enthusiast in the hardware of VR, especially now with Quest 2 launching. But then they also get the, you know sitting in front of, on a tablet or on a laptop, and somebody who spends their social media time and communication within Facebook. So, they are getting both of those. They're capturing both ends of that data spectrum.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it goes down. Right now, the beta is in California, Texas, and then it just says several Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states. So um, I did not click through to Facebook to see exactly what states were
Yeah,
where.
no, I mean, I think the
Um,
interesting piece of this will be as it rolls out of beta, is there what's their pricing structure look like, and is it, most Facebook games a decade ago were all free, and at the time when you had things like Angry Birds and mobile, where people were actually paying a individual cost, Facebook gaming was kind of leading the front in microtransactions, which then eventually turned over onto the mobile platform as Facebook gaming kind of waned. So it'll be interesting to see where they enter that kind of revenue stream in terms of things.
You ready? So, just to revisit, that was a very good job, DB, and you should have more confidence in yourself before the show begins moving forward.
Well, it's mainly because it's because when you've been following this industry for 2 decades or more, that you start to see these trends and be able to pull these things out. So yes, I could look at it and read it relatively quickly. It also doesn't hurt that I probably sunk way too much time into Civilization on Facebook or the Dragon Age game. So I do have a little bit of context to play from. But there it'll be interesting to see where all these different vectors. If you end up with Amazon, Facebook, and Google all having streaming services for games, those are our three big kind of data centers as well. And so,
And you throw Microsoft in there too.
yeah, right? Yep.
So,
So everybody's in this mix at this point.
yeah,
So,
it, Facebook, but Facebook's taking a little different strategy because I feel like Amazon and Stadia and even Microsoft are almost going head to head in a lot of ways for that stuff. But
well, and I'd say from a business perspective, this makes a lot of sense, is that it isn't trying to enter an already difficult market as Stadia has shown. It's taking what Facebook has done well in the past and finding how that translates into the existing marketplace.
well, this has been a good discussion because I feel better about the announcement now. Like it seems to coalesce in my mind. So, um, we'll move on though to the next one. So for strategy in the cloud, uh, this particular company is really not known for that. We're gonna get Nintendo Switch getting cloud streaming games. So this is kind
Well,
of
so we've
a
had cloud
we,
streaming games on Switch before, though,
yeah,
because you had in Japan you had Resident Evil, you had a couple other ones that had some cloud streaming pieces.
right. I feel like, but you notice you said in Japan. I don't really think it's permeated the West yet, as far as I can tell. Based on what I've been reading about this announcement. This is a little bit of a preview announcement for what we're going to have later when we talk about the Nintendo Direct Mini, but it fits in to this theme a little bit better. Um, so the Mini did announce that Control from Remedy is going to get their Cloud Edition to be streamable on the Nintendo Switch, um, which I guess is kind of a big deal. I mean, that's a major game. It feels like Control's kind of getting out there on everything at this point, though, too. But I mean, it's a very solid game, and it's kind of an announcement I didn't expect to see.
Yeah, having both Control and the new Hitman game
Right.
coming out on cloud, were definitely it felt like they were surprise announcements there.
I tried, to look around though to really get a sense of the story afterwards, and I don't know, like when did the mini drop? Was that yesterday? How long ago is it?
Yes, the mini was yesterday.
So I
Yep.
feel like it could have made a bigger splash, but like, I don't I didn't get a sense that this has really permeated the gaming web sphere, like blogosphere as much. Like it's not even really Nintendo supporting it. So there's a company called Ubitus, and I mean that it's kind of their thing to do this, streaming like cloud gaming stuff. Like they're kind of a vendor that specializes in that. So they partnered with 505 Games to release on the Nintendo Switch. So I don't even really feel like it's a major Nintendo initiative per se, other than they're allowing companies to support it and do it through the Switch platform if they want to. So as opposed to like like a Microsoft X Cloud or something. Um,
Well, and to tie into that, I think the interesting piece of this for me is also then how this sets Nintendo up potentially to take advantage in the next generation. That if Ubisoft is putting out AAA games on Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, but Ubisoft also put out Assassin's Creed Odyssey in cloud based on, 2 years ago in Japan. Is this a way for them to use their Ubisoft Plus that we were just talking about to bring games on all platforms?
yeah, it seems to be the direction that this is going. But that's why it's kind of odd for me just the way that the story seems to have rolled out. Like it was hard for me to find like decent articles on it, so to speak. Like I was expecting there to be more in a lot of the normal gaming news sites that I hit, and I guess it was always just rolled up into the mini discussion. But um, for like a major play to host or provide access to these Ubisoft Pluses of the world and EA Plays of the world, um, if that was like a major focus for Nintendo, I almost wonder if there would have been more fanfare, so to speak, about this. And maybe I'm just like jumping the gun, and this is their dipping their toe in the water. Like you said, they did it with Resident Evil in Japan, and now we're kind of getting it in the West a little bit and seeing how maybe it'll take, how it'll work. Um, and those announcements are going to be saved, like the excitement's going to be saved for the future. But um, it just seems. I said Facebook was kind of tepid. They were reserved, but I feel like they're still moving in the direction. With Nintendo, it's almost like to me it felt like an aside, but I don't know. I might be being too harsh.
Yeah, no, I think it might be. I'm looking at an article here on Nintendo Life out of Europe, and they go into a little more detail about what Remedy is hoping to provide in terms of specs on here. That Remedy's talking about that Switch players can choose between an enhanced graphics mode at 30 frames per second with ray tracing to some degree. Granted, you're going to be seeing it on whatever screen you're looking at it, or enhanced performance at 60 frames per second. But the other piece here is that it is a free download because you're downloading kind of the wrapper to test out the performance, which I think is a wise way to do that, rather than to pay for the game and realize your
I
your
think that they said
internet service doesn't.
right, they're not even going to let you buy it until you've proven that your internet's robust enough.
Yep. Which I think is potentially why they're not touting, as back to your question, why they're not touting it to the same degree is because what they don't know for Switch owners, like how much people are going to take advantage of this, or what's their, you know, what type of infrastructure they're running on, and how many people will have the support to be able to do this. Part of the benefit of the Switch, obviously, is the portability of it, or the Switch Lite, and how this works with this. And I think the other piece that will be interesting, and this is a hardware aspect, is how I don't know if robust is the right word, but how efficient is the Wi-Fi within the Switch to take advantage of this? Is it going to be? Is this something that when a potential Switch Pro comes out, that will have a little more hardware designed around the ability to do this more successfully? So maybe this is the as you said, dipping the toe in the water.
It's interesting, but you know, it's there's a lot of questions still. Uh, we'll see how it goes. They chose a excuse me, a great game to try it out with, though. Definitely, I really enjoyed Control. All right, so moving from Nintendo to Microsoft, we have a couple of xCloud stories, and nothing, I think, major, but some interesting ones nonetheless. Um, well, I mean that's maybe not fair. So the first story is from Engadget. Xbox chief Phil Spencer hints at an xCloud streaming stick. And he says, I think you're going to see lower priced hardware as part of our ecosystem. So, Microsoft has teased a Chromecast style dongle for xCloud, video game streaming service that currently comes bundled with Xbox Games Pass Ultimate. In an interview with Stretchery and Spot on the Verge, Xbox chief Phil Spencer said, I think you're going to see lower priced hardware as part of our ecosystem. When you think about streaming sticks and other things that somebody might want to just go plug into their TV and go play via xCloud. A few moments later, he added, you can imagine us even having something we just included in Game Pass subscription that gave you an ability to stream xCloud games to your TV and buying the controller. And I think this is entirely consistent with Microsoft's strategy moving forward. It makes complete sense, to grab the folks like, the same folks that are going for Stadia. It makes sense to have uh, that possible in the Xbox ecosystem with Game Pass and whatnot. And I would venture to say that perhaps Game Pass might be a more appealing option if you're looking head to head with the streaming, like a Chromecast versus an xCloud streaming stick. Um, but so really, it's not that surprising to me. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this hit the market anytime soon, sometime
No,
soon.
and actually, the story that you were mentioning talks about a rumor that was out in what 2016, 2017 about they're having a stick like this in development. So, which then got kind of shelved back in Project Hobart back in 2016 was rumored to be a Chromecast style dongle, but it kind of got shelved as they announced Project Scorpio. So yeah, I would think the actual production of this would be relatively easy. Um, and if you're in a, if you're in the ecosystem, or like you said, or even if you're not in the ecosystem, suddenly to buy one console, but then to put a small dongle or stick on another TV in your house and still be able to play many of the same games, I think is a bigger value add than jumping into a brand new platform like Amazon Luna or Google Stadia.
Yeah, I think it's certainly less intimidating. Like I think for a lot of people, you have the Xbox kind of history to like, I mean, they have a brand in the gaming space, like, and I know Stadia has been around for like a year now, and Luna just was just recently announced. But do you feel like Stadia has that presence in the gaming space, or that they're building it? I guess you could also argue though that a Chromecast and Chrome and all the other services that Google has Google has in the cloud makes Stadia more legitimate. But when it comes to gaming, like, Xbox is already synonymous with that. So I feel like a streaming stick, that would go head to head with with Stadia's solution, would be quite competitive and successful.
But I think this story with our next one it really, to me, puts Microsoft's gaming picture into full view. That this is, Game Pass is really gaming everywhere. That whether it's on a console, whether it's on your PC, whether it is on a potential stick on a TV that not connected to anything else, or now with XCloud, it's also on your tablet and your phone. And and the other story here is that they've added touchscreen controls to 10 different xCloud games. The Microsoft or Minecraft Dungeons had touchscreen controls earlier this year when it came out, which makes a lot of sense to then have that. But they've added it to New Super Lucky's Tale, Guacamelee 2, Killer Instinct, Undermine, Hellblade Sasuna's Sacrifice. I'd be interested to hear Prime's uh, take on that since he played through that. Slay the Spire as a the card battle game makes a lot of sense. Tell Me Why, the Don't Nod People, the Life is Strange kind of adventure game. Hot Shots Racing, which I just talked about last week, which was by Sumo Digital. So a variety of different games and Dead Cells. So, uh, but I think having the touch controls on these games or more again makes it gaming everywhere. That it's not just I have my phone, but I also have to bring my controller along with me. That I can keep playing my game, or maybe I'm playing a different game. Maybe I'm choosing to play, Hot Shots Racing on my phone because I'm not in front of a console. But when I'm at a console, I'm going to be playing Forza. So, I think that it provides another really good value to kind of the family of Game Pass.
Yeah, it's been fun to see like a new strategy. I mean, I don't want to say like this is all surprising because, we've seen Microsoft moving in this direction for a while now, but it's it's exciting to see all of this kind of start to blossom, I guess you could say. Um, I know it feels like we're the we're at kind of like a inflection point. I don't know what the best term is, but it the gaming industry has been rolling along kind of the same rhythm for a couple of decades now, right? And so we got some big changes ahead, and with Microsoft kind of pivoting like this, it's fun to see. Not that like I'm not a huge like streaming fan. Like I'm not like excited and ready to throw all my consoles in the dumpster and invest 100%. But it's still pretty cool from a business and industry perspective. All right, so we got those were our cloud updates. Um, Now we got a few stories on individual game titles, and like I teased earlier with the Nintendo Direct Mini. So first item, as reported by lots of folks across the interwebs, but we pulled the article from PC Gamer. Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed until December. Excuse me. Be pretty bad if it was delayed until September. It was originally, I think, slated to come out in September. Um, so Cyberpunk 2077 has been delayed again. CD Projekt announced today that because of the complexities of developing for PC, current gen, and next gen consoles simultaneously while working from home, is decided to push the game back by 3 weeks to December 10th. So, they kind of give a nod towards making like the testing across all these platforms, and basically gonna be a little bit more time before we get that. So I think originally it was pretty sure it was September, and then they pushed it back to November, I believe. Was that the first pushback?
Well, you're missing the originally it was in the spring, right?
Ah, okay.
It was a spring game because we had the Xbox Cyberpunk console that launched in the spring as well. And then yes, then it was September, now it's November, or then it was November, now it's December. And the game has already gone gold and it's past cert. So it's going to be I would think at this point to delay it, it's going to be a pretty sizable day one patch if this is kind of where they're coming in with. So, but
Um,
again, you know,
it is what it
I don't know
is.
that it's bad.
No,
Yeah,
I maybe there was a time when I would get upset if a game got delayed, but not really anymore. It's just make sure the game works. Far better to delay it a month and take kind of like a little bit of I don't even want to call it bad publicity, but oh man type publicity than to launch your game and have it be crippled with bugs, or just even if it's just one bad bug and it makes your launch look uh,
Well, and it's
shaky.
also it's a game that's got enough hype and press around it that people that know that they were going to get it, or people that are, asking for it or hoping for it for Christmas or planning on it that it was going to be a holiday gift, it still comes out within the holiday window, and there's enough time for people to, you know, delay their purchase to still pick it up. So it's not like it needs the, Black Friday kind of launch bubble in order to get eyes on it. This is probably the biggest, I would say, biggest game of the year, at least in terms of hype. Whether it turns out to be the best game of the year is a different question.
Um, I think that's fair, especially since it's multi-platform. Um, I mean, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is a big game, but it's Assassin's Creed. It's not like a new IP. And you had Halo Infinite, which I think was originally supposed to be a launch title, but that's out of that window now. Um, so PS5 next story from Engadget. PS5 launch title Destruction All Stars postponed until February. So we got another one that was delayed, but this time we're out of the holiday window that you alluded to. Sony is delaying the release of Destruction All Stars. Instead of launching alongside the PlayStation 5, the Rocket League-like title is now slated to come out February 2021. To make up for the delay, PlayStation Plus subscribers will have the chance to download Destruction All Stars for free for a period of 2 months after its release. So I feel like this one's a
This is
little
kind
bit
of the
more,
big piece.
yeah, this one's a
Yeah.
little bit more problematic, um, especially when one, you're tied to the launch of a new system, and two, you're putting yourself into the February zone of titles. So uh, I gotta feel like that's gotta be a hit right financially on the prospects of the game. Or do you feel like if it's
See,
still early in the PS5 life cycle, people will jump at an opportunity to pick something up for that?
and I think it would have died a lot faster if it was a launch game and a full price launch game for what is essentially uh, the equivalents are now free to play games. That this is a multiplayer competitive. It is Rocket League. It is a variety of other games. Um, to throw that out there at $70 at the new price point, you know, it may have got some purchases, but it also probably would have not had a sustained marketplace, a sustained user base. We're putting it out and doing the Rocket League type move here. And same thing, we saw how popular Fall Guys ended up being this summer when it was put out for PlayStation Plus subscribers. So I think that this is going to, in the long run, will be beneficial to the game, and it's whatever it has for in-game transactions or marketplace skins or things like that, because there will be a bigger user base from the get-go.
So you don't feel that the 2 month window of free, that free period is not problematic. You don't think that people will take advantage of it for that 2 months and then just drop it?
Well, no, it's isn't it you have a chance to you can download it for free for 2 months, which means that once you have it in your library, it's yours.
Oh, okay.
It's not that it's the
Oh,
equivalent of
right, right,
being
right. I'm sorry. My
the
mistake.
February PlayStation Plus free game, is that it's there. So so yeah, I think that's the benefit of it. Whether or not there's enough PlayStation 5s into the, out in the wild at that point to create a sustainable user base will be a different question.
All right. So the next story is actually one that I found very interesting. And this is a PS4 related story from Push Square. The Last of Us Remastered PS4 loading time improvements are extraordinary. So, um, says now we have video proof of how much Naughty Dog has improved the loading times in The Last of Us Remastered on PS4. And they have like a patch comparison and It would have been in a minute and 30 seconds before, and now they got it down to about 14 seconds. Um, so I'm kind of haven't been following the story enough, but um, they put these patches in. They have this tied to the PS5, like the patches related to the PS5, and so I guess this is a backwards compatible. The patch had a backwards compatibility thing, but how is this related to the PS4? Do you think?
I think it's somewhere in kind of just cleaning up code. It is from my reading of it and listening to other kind of analysis on it that it's done because of the prep for PlayStation 5, but it's not like the hardware has really changed. It's
Right.
more of the what they can do, how efficient they've become within their coding and programming. And so it's going back in and maybe taking advantage of some of the same, I wouldn't call them tricks, but some of the same strategies and principles that Ghost of Tsushima did this summer, where it loads pretty quickly compared to older games,
Well,
older PlayStation 4 games.
that's exactly what I was thinking when I saw this. I was like, I wonder if what Sucker Punch had done is starting to filter out to some of the other Sony devs, because that was an extremely noticeable difference between Tsushima and like a Horizon Zero Dawn, with regards to load times. But um, it's also nice that this is getting PS4 owners are getting a quality of life, a significant quality of life improvement late in the console cycle. So so yeah, that I mean, there's not much there. It's like, yeah, that's cool. It's awesome.
Yeah, right. It's a nice little like, hey, it's gonna cause me to go back and keep an eye on this and maybe re-download some things that I wouldn't have thought of this fall.
All right, and finally, we had the Nintendo Direct Mini for 20 October, the month of 2020, right? October 2020. Um, you want to? Did you get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, I watched it, and I've already played some of the Hyrule Warriors demo as well. So
Why don't you take us through it then?
sure. So we get first we get Bravely Default 2. We get a release date, which is February 26th, 2021. Initially, it was talked about coming out in 2020, but because we haven't heard anything about it up until this point, it was pretty expected that this was going to be delayed. The real question became how much further it was going to be delayed. And so they talked about having over 20,000 surveys that were completed based on the demo. That one of the things they're going to do is have multiple tiers of kind of selectable difficulty. One of the big knocks on the demo was how difficult it was. They went through a couple of the additional classes or job holders that you could pick up jobs from. Uh, the demo's still out there. It still keeps that same graphical style. This isn't like a really big overhaul in anything. It just feels like they've been kind of fleshing it out and developing it. So we get that piece. Then we get the announcements related to Control and Hitman 3, the cloud versions, which we already talked about. We get a little tease for No More Heroes 3. No date there, but we do have, a date of 2021. But we also got No More Heroes, the original, and No More Heroes 2, Desperate Struggle, are now out on Switch. They're $20 each, maybe a little bit of a discount for the initial piece here. Uh, we get a reminder that Phoenix Rising, Immortals Phoenix Rising from Ubisoft, which we've talked about, is launching day and date with a PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. So it's coming out on all consoles. And this is the Assassin's Creed Odyssey team. This is Assassin's Creed Odyssey mixed with Breath of the Wild. As I said earlier, I played through the demo of that on Stadia last night. So playing, and it feels kind of that combo of there's some Breath of the Wild type puzzles. There is kind of got Assassin's Creed combat, and it definitely has kind of an Assassin's Creed, a cartoony skin to the top of Assassin's Creed's kind of mythical. Greek world. Then we get stories and seasons, which is kind of this is the Rune Factory. This is the Harvest Moon aspect of towns and farming. One of my uh, a mobile game that I really enjoyed last year, which was Part Time UFO, which is developed by HAL, is now out on Switch as well. It has all the same levels as the mobile game, but it also has two-player co-op, and it's added some additional levels in there. And it's a really neat kind of physics puzzle game. Excuse me, I kept talking, and but so this is you are a little robot and you're a little UFO, and you're stacking things. You have different goals within each map, each puzzle board to try to meet.
So if that was a mobile game, do you know, did they announce the price point on that one?
So the mobile game was, I went back and looked. The mobile game is $4 or $4.99, and the price point if you buy it, I looked the last night, it's $8.99 on Switch. So it does have some additional. At first, I thought that's kind of high. I was hoping for $5 or $5.99, but it does add the multiplayer. So which in some ways is similar to things like moving out in terms of multiplayer, right? If this is a physics puzzle game where you are dragging and stacking things, having two players could help you, or it could kind of create additional chaos. So yes, it's
Look,
$9 as a Switch game.
looking at the screenshots, just having the ship with the claw and like the big whatever underneath, I'm getting Solar Jetman vibes. It's
Yeah,
going
I
back,
could get that. Yep, there's
going back,
some. Yeah,
but it, yeah, it's probably feels different. But just looking at the screenshots, that's what I'm seeing.
it's a. Initially, I was initially disappointed because I was hoping for like a different graphical pass on it, something a little more, up to a Switch release. But the graphics on it are very cutesy and charming, and they're very much in kind of old school HAL, in that kind of
Well, I mean,
NES Kirby aspect.
right.
You were starting to say something,
Oh,
Swiss?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit, but I was just going to say that the screenshot or like the title picture they have on the website has like a level of graphical polish that could have been nice to see in the game, what you alluded to, but um, because it's a little bit uh, I don't know, sharper, more cartoony, more high definition, so to speak.
Yeah. Although, I mean, I will say, all that said, I played through the game. I completed it. I went back and got multiple stars on puzzles that I couldn't figure out, and I spent a lot of time with it on mobile. So it's a great, Hal's a good developer, and it's a really solid kind of traditional, fun, classic Nintendo-like game.
Well,
So
for 8.99 too, like I mean, how many games do you have to buy at the eShop and you'll get enough gold coins to like really, you know, throw at that thing?
yeah, this is definitely a game where it's a quick purchase, and maybe it is a holiday car ride type of game that it's going to keep people busy for a while. So we have talked the most about the cheapest game
Yeah,
in
no, that's
the announcements, but we also get Tropical 6 is coming this November 6th. We get a couple strategy games here with Surviving the Aftermath. Is it looks like going back to the Facebook gaming we were talking about before, but this is kind of like a grid strategy game. You are building a encampment or a settlement and resource base, maybe a little bit of combat in there as well. Not a lot of information to it. Coming out in the spring of 2021. Bakugan shows back up, right? Bakugan was the announcement during their Treehouse Live this summer, where they were announcing one more surprise game, and everybody was so excited when it was a Bakugan game.
Hmm.
Then we get another strategy card battler game of Griftlands. Griftlands is out on the PC right now. Lots of good reviews, good hype around it. It's coming to Switch in the summer of 21. And then finally, we got an extended gameplay announcement for Hyrule Warriors. And there is a demo that's out right now on the eShop, and your leveling that you do in the demo will carry over to the main game, and the game itself launches later in November. So right before Thanksgiving is when Hyrule Warriors comes out, and it you know it's a moose it's a it's a Warriors game. It it's got a great graphical style to it because it's Breath of the Wild, and it's got all the right sound effects and everything else, but it is very much a run to the next giant mob of moblins and slash, light heavy 500 KO. So it'll be interesting to see if they do anything different. But one of the things that they do different is that they open up a window for storytelling here. That the beginning of it, and this is not a spoiler because if you launch the first minute of the demo, you'll see the opening cutscene, which has a little mini guardian jump through a portal as Zelda is defeating or sealing off Calamity Ganon in what was the original timeline. And now this little guardian jumps back into time as before all that has happened, as the calamities are starting. And so it opens up the door to have a totally different. It doesn't have to end in the same way that Breath of the Wild does, because now we are in the classic split Zelda timeline. So if we can do this with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask and all the other Zeldas, that Koei Tecmo can do this as well with the Breath of the Wild canon. So it'll be interesting to see if that lends itself to some interesting storytelling pieces, or who else they bring in terms of characters.
I think it's just kind of cool that I don't know. I don't know if it's cool yet, but that whole Breath of the Wild, overarching narrative that they're not only breaking it up kind of across two different games, but they're doing it like you said across two different genres. So, um, how many Breath of the Wild fans are gonna is just the IP enough to bring people in to a very different experience. So, because I know quite a few people that aren't gamers, but they play Zelda and have enjoyed Zelda. Is this going to be something that would entice them?
And I was thinking of the same thing, that because it's a Musu game, that it's it's not super mechanics heavy. It could be easy for people who are not traditional, that are just Zelda or Breath of the Wild fans, not even Zelda fans, Breath of the Wild fans, to pick this up and play because it is relatively straightforward, but it gets them back in a world that they love.
All right. You have any last minute stories you wanted to include?
I don't. I think we've churned through a lot, but any that you've been chomping at the bit to slide in?
No, I think we hit it. Um, we're getting close now. Almost in November. We're almost in launch month. But I was I did not do what I was supposed to do beforehand and write down who's on the next show. I think
The next show
it's
is
Agasicles in Prime.
Yep, it is not you and I. You and I are back in 2 weeks for another deep dive episode.
Awesome. So the next Pix Plays will not be performed by you or I, but you can look forward to Agasicles and Prime coming back with this one. So Phil Spencer was recently interviewed by Kotaku. In the interview, at the beginning of the interview, he mentioned that over the long haul, he expects the Xbox Series S to be the bigger seller. The price will carry it to higher demand over the performance of the Xbox Series X. So the assignment is basically to try to simulate the performance delta with the same game and see if you care. Um, Agasicles drafted this and suggested, if you can play it on like the Xbox One X um, or the PS4 Pro, and then like the regular PS4, or maybe playing a PC game with two different perhaps graphical quality settings. And he asked, do the specs matter in the experience? If not at the game mechanic level, how about the quality of life level? And he notes, as always, feel free to meet the spirit or an intent of the assignment and not the letter of the law, which means he already has his eye on something that he's going to skirt around. No, I think he has something right now. He has the Division 2, so I don't know if he'll change his mind on that before next week's episode, but he's going to try it, I think, on a couple of different graphical cards. And Prime is going to play Doom Eternal, it looks like. That was the last note that he has. So we'll see. Doom Eternal, by the way, is on sale on Steam. The Halloween sale.
It's also on Game Pass on PC and Xbox.
Awesome. So
Yep.
that's probably how Prime is going to be playing it.
I'm guessing that's probably how he's going to play it as well. But you're right. The Steam sale, we get the Halloween one, and then in a few weeks we'll get the fall Thanksgiving sale, or whatever they're going to call it this year.
All right, so I think that'll about do it. For DBQ Hams, I'm Swiss Guard. Join Agasicles and Prime next week for the GX show. Thanks. Good night.